Hey, hi, and hello everyone. Welcome to not a Dave's Grave. This is not a Dave's Grave video. There will be no footage. Oh, good start. There will be no footage of me or my carpet in this video. I know, surprise. So I just want to kind of discuss the whole Switch 2 thing, because I feel like, this isn't the kind of topic that I would put on the main channel. I mean, I'm not a discussion channel, right? As you probably know. And that's kind of what my members videos are for discussions. So I figured, why not make one about the Switch 2? Because this situation with the Switch 2 is kind of freaking ridiculous at this point. I'm not gonna lie to you, and I'm gonna try not to cuss as much in this video, because I'm not gonna go through and censor all of it, and I don't want YouTube to demonetize me. So I'm gonna try to cuss a little less. But yeah, this situation is freaking ridiculous. Stuff is getting overblown. Some stuff's getting overlooked. But it's mostly just people getting misinformation and just believing it, which is, I feel like, a really bad sign as to where the internet is as of now. Because, like, you've got people thinking that the game card keys are what Nintendo's standardizing. No, it's not. It's for games that, on the Switch 1 there were those games like, let me think of one. Moving Out, I believe. The game that was made by, the Overcooked developers, I believe, was a game that if you bought the physical version, it was a game where you would have to put a code in the Switch, and it was basically just a box for the digital version. And I think this this virtual game cards are a separate thing, but this game key card thing is for games like that. It is basically replacing the digital codes, but also it's making it really good in the way that you can now put a game in your Switch, you have the license to that game, and then you can take that game out and put it in another Switch, and after the download, that Switch can officially play the game. You can share copies, and it seems like Nintendo's encouraging sharing games a lot more with the Switch 2, especially considering the whole virtual game card thing, And so it's actually a net benefit. I don't know why people are treating this as some kind of bad thing, because they're treating it as if they're replacing normal game cards with the game key cards, which is not true. It is in fact going to be that some of the games that were digital only will now get physical game card releases, which is awesome. Physical media really should be preserved, and I feel should still be the future, even if digital is more convenient at times. Content preservation forever is always going to be more important in the end. That's why I still buy all my games physical. But yeah, I think that the game key cards are actually a pretty good idea for Nintendo. It's a good way to make a game, physical without having to put the game on the physical card, and spend all the extra manufacturing time putting on the card. Instead, you can have a physical version, but it's just a download code to a digital game, which I think is cool. A lot of eShop games are probably going to use that, and it just lets people get more physical games. That's awesome. So second up, I kind of want to talk about, I don't know why people are still confused at Mario Kart and the other games. It's ridiculous, man. I'm not going to lie. Mario Kart is $80. Some Switch 2 editions of games are $80. Some Switch 2 editions are $70, like the Zelda ones, and included with Switch Online. And then some Switch 2 things are just updates for games that do not involve additional content, and therefore are free updates. So I want to go over the whole Nintendo Switch 2 edition thing. And that's because people are really, really mad about these things being $20. Now, if you told me that Pokemon Legends ZA was $20 more than the Switch 1 version, yes, that would be frankly ridiculous, because they specifically mentioned that there will be nothing at all in the new version content-wise. It's just performance. So in my opinion, that thing should be an update. I don't think that should be an addition. But regardless, if it's $10, whatever. Holy courses today. But my problem is with people getting mad that Mario Party plus Jamboree TV is $80. And I think the whole thing with people saying this is, oh, the original game was, you know, 60. Sure, somewhere you could probably find it for 50. And the Switch 2 version is 80. But if you really think about it, like, Jamboree TV and especially Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed World, those are both $80. It's DLC. You're just buying DLC. And so I feel like, you know, $20 for a whole new Kirby campaign in Forgotten Land is a really reasonable price for that. You know, like, obviously there's this whole thing. Mario Kart's $80. That is arguably kind of stupid, right? But at the same time, you look at the fact that it's the largest game cartridge on the Switch 2 so far by a long shot. The second largest game card I believe we have is less than half of that, which is ridiculous. But you know, Nintendo's compression has always been legendary. It's always been insane, you know? So that's why people, like, I feel like people are kind of overlooking the 23 gigabyte thing. Because, I mean, back on the topic of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, so HAL actually somehow managed to make it smaller than the original. On Switch 2, the Switch 2 edition is, I think, 0.1 gigabyte smaller than the original with the DLC. Don't ask how that's possible. I think there's some black magic going on there. But point is, what was I gonna say? Point is, the price tag of these games is also kind of inflated in people's minds because you're getting, you know, 10 gigabytes of Donkey Kong Bonanza, right? That game I believe is 70. Or 60. It might even be, I think it's 70. And people are like, I don't know, people are concerned or like complaining about the price of Switch 2 games. And I don't know, like, yes, it's expensive, it's more, but I mean, you gotta look, that inflation alone would bring games up to $78 nowadays. So we should be happy that 80 is not the new standard for Nintendo. It is 70. As we've seen from, you know, games like Donkey Kong Bonanza. We haven't gotten the prices of too many games, but I think DK is a good example of, like, you know, that's going to be a pretty flagship first party title and it's $70. So I think it's fair to expect most games will be 70. Mario Kart's going to be 80 because it's more than double the size. It's their big flagship game. It's everything, right? Mario Kart's everything. So Mario Kart being 80, low-key makes sense to me. I don't know why everyone else is so confused with that. So that's the prices of the games. And if the prices of the games are alleviated, the game key cards are alleviated, then all that's left really is the main price of the console. And the console being $450, sure, it's a big jump from $300. But at the same time, you gotta understand, this thing is literally like insanely powerful compared to the Switch. It is like, it could probably process some things at double the speed, which is insane. But you know, you're paying for the game chat, you're paying for the enhanced frame rates on Switch 1 games, you're paying for the 4K resolution, you're paying for a lot of stuff that I don't think people realize was a big jump just in the previous generation. And I think that's another thing people are kind of taking for granted, is that, oh, well, we're in the era of PS5 and Xbox Series X. And those consoles are, like, obviously not, but let's face it, pretty much the pinnacle of performance on a console. I don't think consoles are going to get too much faster at this point. If they do, it'll be minimal, you know. PS6, you know, 8K probably. But who even has 8K TVs? Who has 8K monitors? That's kind of my point with this, is like, making the jump from 1080 to 4K was big. 1080 to 4K was PS4 and the Xbox One, I believe. And I have to fact check, but I believe PS4 and Xbox One could do 4K. Because the PS5's whole thing was 8K, and I don't know what the hell they're doing with that. But PS3 to PS4 was a big fucking jump. There's one of my F words for the video, I guess. YouTube, please don't demonetize. That was a big jump, right? And so people are kind of underestimating that we're going from a portable 1080p 30 FPS console to a portable 1080p 60 FPS, or is it, I think it's 60, docked 4K 60, or this is big, 1080 120. The 1080 120 is definitely going unnoticed as of now. I don't think people are realizing how big of a thing 120 FPS really is. Holy shit, I made it. That's crazy. People are kind of underestimating the 120 FPS. It's going to make things so freaking smooth. You know, games like Odyssey are getting an update to improve performance. Odyssey at 120 FPS is going to be a godsend. It's going to be so beautiful, right? And so we got this big jump in frame rates, this massive jump in resolution. 4K is like the big standard. And then people are kind of like upset that the console's 450. And sure, 400 would be awesome. But you gotta realize the OLED was 350, man. Like, if the OLED was 300 or 315, yeah, sure. But if $350 is the price for a glorified Switch, I don't see any reason to expect that a Switch 2 would be 450. Right? And I get it. You know, economy stuff. Now is not the best time to increase the price of the Nintendo Switch by $150. But, you know, like, they didn't factor this shit in when they were making the console, right? They thought, oh, we're going to be able to finally make the console where performance is not a liability. And they've done it. And now people are really complaining, and I can see both sides of it. I can see the side of, oh, this is a little too much, you know, increasing the console and the games. And then there's the accessories. So the accessories are kind of where I absolutely understand everyone else. I'm sorry. I'm on the side of Nintendo. I have been for most of this video. I've been giving them the benefit of the doubt, you know. Shit's getting more expensive. It's getting more expensive to create. So they have to charge more. And account for inflation, they have to charge even more. But who is paying $100 for a controller? That is my main concern. And now, when you take into account the accessories, the controller, the Joy-Con chargers, a case if you want one, which you probably should get one, game card holders, which some cases don't have enough slots, so you need an extra game card holder. I have two cases. I have one that just holds games, one that holds the Switch and games. I bring both on trips. The camera, any potential other accessories. There's freaking new wheels for the new Mario Kart game. There's new wheels. Add all that up, you're getting pretty freaking expensive. And so that's where I kind of see the whole thing with people saying it's really expensive. The console itself, sure, it could have been $425. 450 is a round number. I guess they liked that. Especially because then the bundle is just a clean 500 with Mario Kart. But even still, you know, 450, 500. Really it's 500 because I don't see anyone that's going to buy the console without Mario Kart. I mean, you're getting a $30 discount. That's kind of a lot. That's half of a deluxe. But you know, you got the 500, then you're probably gonna buy a camera. A camera is definitely gonna be one of those things that's like, you definitely really do not need it. It's like, if you want to do that kind of thing, spend it, right? So the camera is 50. Let's actually do the math right now. Let me see if my multitasking brain still works. Let me see if I can drive Shroom Ridge while I do the math for this. So you got 500 for the console with Mario Kart. So let's just say, you know, Mario Kart's all you need, man. You are just a Mario Kart fanatic, and Mario Kart is all you need. That's $500. Controller, you're at $590. In fact, let's just round it to a clean $600, because controller with tax, the Switch with tax, it's gonna end up being significant. So you're now at $600 with a controller and a Switch. You're gonna have to probably buy a case. That's probably gonna be what? For a solid case, $25. So you're now at 625. Let's see what else. You're probably gonna have to buy. Let me see here. Switch Online. I guess you can add that to the price. Because, I mean, to someone buying a Switch 2 that doesn't have a Switch, right? Yes, you're going to have to buy Switch Online. I think at this point there's no reason to get the expansion pack. If you want to go cheap, yeah. I mean, I know $600 or $700, like, I'm not tone deaf. That is a lot of money, and I know. I feel like if you're at the point where you can buy a Switch 2 on launch day, you could probably get expansion pack, and as an expansion pack holder, I would recommend it if you have the means to. It's really, really valuable. You get BCP from Mario Kart, which is really, really valuable. You get GameCube games now, which is awesome, and N64. It's a huge library of games, basically. I think if you get Mario Kart and then the expansion pack, you're genuinely set for games for like the next year. Until hopefully things get better with prices of stuff. So plus expansion pack, you are now at roughly $700, and $700 is the price of a PS5 Pro. Now you start to see why people are getting a little mad, and I feel like at the start I might have actually been a little bit off with my tone. I kind of feel like I started to sound like I was fully defending Nintendo here. I'm just kind of explaining the situation and getting the facts straight. $700 is a lot of freaking money, man. It's a lot. For, you know, Mario Kart, a Switch 2, and a case, and Switch Online, right? That's a lot. But I think it is also important to note that the Switch 2 is probably gonna last maybe 8-9 years. The Switch 1 is at 8 years right now, and this was supposed to be a test of a new generation, and in fact it is, because we're getting the first direct sequel Nintendo console. Wii U, arguably, but like a numbered sequel, right? This is the Nintendo Switch 2. That's all it is. It's a second Switch that is more powerful. And so, you know, if they start to go in this line that PlayStation went with, you know, Switch 1, Switch 2, Switch 3, if they eventually do a Switch 3, I don't even know. We're not even going to conceptualize that right now. But the Switch 2 is all you need performance-wise for probably the next decade. Most games, if not all, should be able to run on it. And if not, you know, make your game smaller, man. I don't know. If there's a game that can't run on Switch 2, you probably shouldn't be mass producing it, unless it's a really popular game, because you're gonna lose money on making that shit. But anyway, yeah. So I think it's important to note the lifespan of the Switch 2, and that this is the first Nintendo console in a while that is gonna be able to be fully third-party supported for a long freaking time. Because it has the performance to keep up with stuff like, you know, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is like, I believe, a launch title. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Street Fighter 6. These are all games, like modern day games that are running on this thing. And I think that's important to note. And, you know, reports have also come out that it's really, really third-party friendly, because it's essentially like a mid-range PC, power-wise. And so I think that's really important, the third-party compatibility, because now we're going to get so many more games that don't just have to be Nintendo first-party. Nintendo can spend more time making their first-party games, more time making them better. Shock dodge. And I think that's going to be important to a long, sustainable system. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the Switch 2. I think if you're in the position to buy a Switch 2, I think you probably should. If I'm being honest, you know, I don't think there's going to be a time where the price goes down anytime soon. So you probably should get it while you can. If you can't get a Switch 2, keep in mind, most of the new games coming out, there are Switch 1 versions for. And I think this is another main reason that people are not buying a Switch 2, is because Nintendo is still going to heavily support the Switch 1. This is actually the first time in a while that Nintendo is going to be supporting its previous console very consistently. You know, Wii U to Switch, what did the Wii U really get after the Switch came out, you know? They kind of just transitioned, but the backwards compatibility here means that you're going to get Switch 1 games on Switch 2 with, you know, the Nintendo Switch 2 editions and all of that. But you're going to still be supported for probably a year or two, I imagine, knowing Nintendo. You'll be supported for a year or two, which gives you time to, you know, collect, save up, and do what you can to maybe just, you know, get the best experience that fits you. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Switch 2. A lot of overblown stuff with the games. The accessories, yes, are expensive as hell, but luckily they're accessories. The new Joy-Cons should hopefully be better than the Pro Controllers. Or sorry, not the Pro Controllers, than the Switch 1 Joy-Cons, which should allow you to play with that instead of a Pro Controller. The wheels. But do you really need a wheel? I probably want a wheel. But do you really need a wheel? No, you don't need a wheel. Again, you might not even need a Pro Controller, which would be a huge save because 90 bucks is a freaking lot. The Switch itself, 500. Get Switch Online, 550. I think is your price, your minimum price for a Switch 2 is gonna probably be 550. If you can afford that, awesome. If you can't, you know, Switch 1 will support you for a long time to come. And if you are new to Nintendo, right? If you don't have a Switch 1 or a Switch 2, get a Switch 2 because it runs everything on Switch 1. So if you're not, you know, diving into the whole Switch 1, Switch 2 thing, save yourself the stress of buying a Switch 1 and then in a year and a half you say, oh shit, I want a Switch 2. Because your Switch 1 is genuinely gonna become essentially useless on June 5th if you have a Switch 2 in hand. If you have a Switch 1 and only a Switch 1, no, it'll still be obviously very useful. But if you have both, you're not gonna use your Switch 1 very often. Maybe for some extra stuff, maybe for some games that maybe feel better on Switch 1 for some reason, I don't know what kind of game that would be. But yeah, if you're new to consoles, get a Switch 2. Also keep in mind, it is going to be the longest lasting console of this generation, because the others have been out for a few years already, so the Switch 2 will be out for a few years longer than those. And yeah, that's why I'm personally on the side of Switch 2 being worth it, even though it's a little, you know, up there. A little bit, just a little, tiny bit up there. But yeah, if you're willing to, get a Switch 2, get Mario Kart on launch day, you're gonna have a blast, right? There's a ton of launch games, no matter what archetype you're into. Automatically there'll be over 1,000 because of Switch 1 games, you know? You can get Smash Ultimate on Switch 2. A little disappointed they didn't update it to run better, but it's a Smash Bros. Game. It'll run fantastic. But yeah, that's all for this video. I'll probably keep rambling until the race is over, just, you know, for your guys' sake, so you know if I win or not. I just smuggled triple shrooms into first place. Almost first place. So I think we're set. Oh, we are not set. See, you know, on the Switch 2. Like, oh, come on. On the Switch 2, the lightning's actually blue. So, you know. Ooh, 80 bucks. Obviously, there's still going to be people joking about the price of the Switch 2. Obviously, objectively, it is still a little bit ridiculous. Oh, come on. Alright, at least I'm going to get like 30. Alright, cool. But yeah, obviously, it's objectively a little bit overpriced. But you gotta think, all the economical shit happening right now, 450 is the least it's going to be for a long time. So you should probably, if you can, nab it while you can. If you can't, enjoy your Switch 1, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.